On the day of her luxurious wedding, a young bride could never have imagined that her beloved childhood horse would interrupt the ceremony, unveiling dark family secrets. Guided by a message left by her late mother, she reveals shocking betrayals and discovers her true destiny, leaving all guests astounded by the shocking surprise that would end the party. The Grand St. Patrick's Cathedral in New York City stood resplendent on a crisp autumn morning, its Gothic spires reaching towards the clear blue sky. Sunlight streamed through the stained glass windows, casting a kaleidoscope of colors across the marble floors. The air was thick with the scent of roses and lilies, artfully arranged in towering bouquets that lined the aisle. Outside, the bustling streets of Manhattan seemed to hush in reverence of the day's event. Limousines and luxury cars pulled up to the cathedral's ornate entrance, disgorging a steady stream of New York's elite. Politicians, celebrities, and business tycoons, all dressed in their finest. Inside, the cathedral buzzed with anticipation. Soft violin music drifted through the air, mingling with the excited whispers of guests as they found their seats in the intricately carved wooden pews. The vaulted ceiling echoed with the gentle rustling of silk dresses and the click of designer heels on stone. At the altar, bathed in the warm glow of hundreds of candles, stood an arch woven with white roses and green ivy. It was a picture-perfect setting for what promised to be the wedding of the year, a union of two of New York's most prominent families. As the last of the 500 guests settled in, a hush fell over the cathedral. The air tingled with expectation, everyone's eyes trained on the massive oak doors at the back of the church. Any moment now, they would swing open to reveal the bride, Emily, ready to step into her fairy tale ending. The golden rays of the setting sun paint the sky in hues of orange and pink, casting long shadows across Central Park in the heart of New York City. As the bustling metropolis winds down for the evening, the park becomes a sanctuary of tranquility amidst the urban jungle. The air is crisp with the first hint of autumn, carrying the scent of fallen leaves and distant food carts. Along a winding path lined with century-old oak trees, an elderly woman slowly makes her way. Her silver hair catches the fading light, and her weathered hands grip a well-worn wooden cane. She pauses occasionally, her eyes twinkling as she takes in the scene around her. Squirrels darting between trees, pigeons cooing softly, and the distant laughter of children on the playground. Near a small pond, a young boy crouches at the water's edge, his reflection rippling as he tosses breadcrumbs to a family of ducks. His mother sits on a nearby bench, engrossed in her phone, occasionally glancing up to ensure her son's safety. The ducks quack appreciatively, creating ripples that spread across the pond's surface, disturbing the perfect mirror of the sky above. As night begins to fall, the park's lamps flicker to life, casting a warm glow over the paths and creating pockets of light and shadow. The sounds of the city, car horns, distant sirens, and the rumble of the subway provide a muted backdrop to the park's more natural symphony of rustling leaves and chirping crickets. This is where our story unfolds, in this oasis of nature within the concrete maze of New York City, where the lives of humans and animals intertwine in unexpected and heartwarming ways. Meet Margaret Peggy Thompson, a spirited 75-year-old retired elementary school teacher. Her silver hair is neatly pinned back, and her blue eyes sparkle with a youthful curiosity that belies her age. Peggy's face is a roadmap of laugh lines, each wrinkle telling a story of a life well lived. She walks with a slight stoop, leaning on her trusty cane, but there's a determination in her step that speaks volumes about her character. Peggy has been a fixture in Central Park for decades, known by the regular park-goers for her kindness and her uncanny ability to connect with both people and animals. Her pockets are always filled with treats, seeds for the birds, nuts for the squirrels, and the occasional biscuit for friendly dogs. Despite living alone since her husband passed away 5 years ago, Peggy never feels lonely in the park. To her, the animals and the people she meets are an extension of her family. Today, as she makes her way along her usual path, Peggy notices a young boy by the pond. This is Ethan Williams, an inquisitive 8-year-old with a mop of unruly brown hair and glasses that seem too big for his face. Ethan's eyes are fixed on the family of ducks in the pond, his face a picture of wonder and concentration. He's oblivious to the world around him, lost in his own little bubble of fascination with the natural world. Ethan's mother, Sarah Williams, sits nearby on a park bench. At 35, Sarah is a successful marketing executive. Her tailored suit and perfectly styled blonde hair, a stark contrast to the natural setting around her. Her manicured fingers tap away at her smartphone, her brow furrowed in concentration as she responds to yet another work email. Despite her physical presence in the park, Sarah's mind is clearly elsewhere, caught up in the demands of her high-pressure career. As Peggy approaches, her attention is drawn to a magnificent red-tailed hawk perched on a nearby tree branch. This is Rusty, a wild hawk who has made the park his home for the past few years. His keen eyes survey the area, missing nothing. Rusty has become something of a local celebrity among birdwatchers and park regulars, known for his distinctive rusty red tail and the graceful way he soars above the park's green canopy. Unbeknownst to the human park-goers, Rusty is more than just a beautiful bird. He's a silent guardian of the park, keeping a watchful eye on both the animal inhabitants and the human visitors. His presence brings a touch of wild majesty to the urban landscape, reminding everyone of the delicate balance between nature and city life. As these characters converge in the heart of Central Park, the stage is set for an unexpected adventure that will intertwine their lives in ways they never imagined, bridging the gap between generations, species, and the natural and urban worlds. As the sun dips below the horizon, casting long shadows across Central Park, a sudden commotion breaks the evening's tranquility. Rusty, the red-tailed hawk, lets out a piercing cry and takes flight, circling urgently above the pond. His unusual behavior catches Peggy's attention, her years of observing the park's wildlife telling her something is amiss. At the same moment, Ethan, still crouched by the water's edge, notices a disturbance among the ducks. The mother duck is quacking frantically, her ducklings scattering in panic. To Ethan's horror, he spots the cause of their distress. One of the ducklings has become entangled in a discarded plastic six-pack ring, struggling to keep its head above water. Without hesitation, Ethan reaches out to help the duckling, but in his eagerness, he loses his balance. With a startled cry, he tumbles forward into the chilly pond water. Sarah, hearing her son's shout, finally looks up from her phone, her face paling as she sees Ethan splashing in the water. As chaos unfolds at the pond, the true nature of our characters begins to shine through. Peggy, despite her age and physical limitations, summons a strength she didn't know she still possessed. Her years of experience as a teacher kick in, and she takes charge of the situation with a calm authority. Ethan, soaked and shivering, manages to find his footing in the shallow water. His glasses are askew and his clothes are plastered to his body, but his concern is still for the struggling duckling. "The baby duck," he sputters, pointing towards the distressed creature. As Sarah helps Ethan out of the water, Peggy carefully wades in, her arthritic joints protesting but her determination unwavering. With gentle hands, she untangles the plastic from the duckling, all the while cooing softly to keep the little bird calm. In this moment of crisis, we see the essence of who these characters truly are. Peggy's nurturing instinct and quiet strength, Ethan's compassion for animals and innocent bravery, Sarah's maternal love breaking through her work-focused exterior, and even Rusty's silent vigilance, all come to the forefront, painting a vivid picture of their personalities and values. As the immediate crisis subsides, the characters begin to process what has just happened, revealing deeper layers of their personalities and relationships. Ethan, still dripping and shivering, watches in awe as Peggy gently places the rescued duckling back in the water. His eyes are wide with admiration, not just for the elderly woman's bravery, but for her evident connection with the animals. "That was amazing," he exclaims, momentarily forgetting his own discomfort. "How did you know what to do?" Peggy smiles warmly at the boy, her eyes twinkling. "When you've been around as long as I have, you pick up a few things," she says with a wink. "But you were very brave too, young man. Not many people would risk falling in to help a little duck." Sarah, meanwhile, is torn between relief and residual panic. She hugs Ethan tightly, her normally perfectly coiffed hair now disheveled, and her makeup smudged from worried tears. "Oh, Ethan," she murmurs, her voice thick with emotion. "You scared me half to death, but I'm proud of you for wanting to help. Proud of you for..." This admission seems to surprise Sarah herself, as if she's realizing for the first time the depth of her son's compassion. She looks at Ethan with new eyes, seeing beyond the often muddy clothes and constant questions about animals that she usually finds exasperating. Rusty, having ensured the danger has passed, alights on a nearby branch. His piercing gaze seems to assess each of the humans in turn, as if weighing their worth. His presence serves as a reminder of the wild, unpredictable nature that exists even in this carefully manicured park. As the adrenaline of the moment fades, the four unlikely allies, a retired teacher, a career-focused mother, a nature-loving boy, and a wild hawk, find themselves bonded by this shared experience, setting the stage for deeper connections and unexpected adventures to come. Ethan, still dripping from his impromptu swim, starts to shiver violently in the cool evening air. His teeth chatter as he says, Mum, I'm really cold." Sarah, realizing the potential health risk, looks around frantically for something to warm him up, but her designer handbag offers little in the way of practical solutions. Peggy, ever resourceful, shrugs off her well-worn cardigan and wraps it around Ethan's shoulders. "This should help for now, dear," she says kindly, "but we need to get you home and into some dry clothes before you catch a chill." As if on cue, a crack of thunder rumbles in the distance, and fat raindrops begin to fall. The impending storm adds a new level of urgency to their predicament. With growing alarm, Peggy realizes they've discovered a fallen nest. Two baby birds chirp weakly in the grass, while their mother flutters anxiously nearby, unable to help. The teenagers, more curious than malicious, are unknowingly preventing the mother bird from reaching her chicks. Peggy feels torn. She knows Ethan needs to get home quickly, but she can't bear the thought of leaving the baby birds in danger. She turns to Sarah and Ethan, conflict evident in her eyes. "I hate to ask this of you," she begins hesitantly, "but those baby birds need help. Would you mind if we took a small detour?" Sarah checks her watch, her face a mask of indecision. She has an important early meeting the next day, and Ethan is already at risk of getting sick. But seeing the pleading look in her son's eyes and the earnest concern on Peggy's face, she finds herself nodding reluctantly. As they begin to make their way towards the fallen nest, the rain starts to fall more heavily. The path becomes slick, making it treacherous for Peggy with her cane and Sarah in her high heels. Ethan, despite his wet clothes, seems energized by the prospect of another animal rescue. The group faces a race against time to save the baby birds, get Ethan home safely, and navigate the rapidly deteriorating weather conditions. Each step forward presents new obstacles, testing their resolve and forcing them to rely on each other in ways they never expected. As they approach the cluster of trees, the situation with the fallen nest becomes more complex. The teenagers, startled by the approaching adults, scatter quickly, leaving the baby birds exposed to the increasing rain. Peggy, Sarah, and Ethan huddle around the nest, shielding the chicks from the downpour. Sarah looks up at the tree, then down at her mud-caked designer outfit. For a moment she hesitates, but then she sees the determination in Ethan's eyes. With a deep breath, she kicks off her ruined heels. "I'll do it," she announces, surprising even herself. As Sarah prepares to climb, a new challenge presents itself. The mother bird, distressed by the human presence, begins diving at them, her protective instincts in full force. Rusty, still circling overhead, lets out a series of sharp cries, as if trying to communicate with the smaller bird. Ethan, still wrapped in Peggy's cardigan, nods bravely. He begins to whisper soothing words to the agitated bird, his young voice a stark contrast to the harsh weather around them. Meanwhile, Peggy notices a park security guard in the distance, making his rounds. If he spots them, he might misunderstand the situation and put an end to their rescue mission. She needs to find a way to distract him without leaving Sarah and Ethan. On the ground, Ethan's soothing words seem to be working, but he's shivering more violently now, his wet clothes and the cool rain taking their toll. Peggy worries about his health, knowing they need to wrap this up quickly. As the security guard draws nearer, the mother bird becomes more frantic, and Sarah struggles to maintain her grip on both the tree and the nest. The group finds themselves at a critical juncture, with multiple challenges converging at once. Sarah's perilous position, the agitated mother bird, Ethan's declining condition, the approaching security guard, and the relentless storm. In this moment, each character must dig deep, finding reserves of courage, creativity, and compassion they didn't know they possessed. Sarah, perched precariously in the tree, takes a deep breath to steady herself. She recalls a rock climbing class she took years ago and applies those long-forgotten techniques. With newfound determination, she secures her footing and carefully maneuvers the nest into a sturdy crook of branches. "Almost there," she calls down, her voice a mix of fear and excitement. Ethan, despite his shivering, continues his gentle coaxing of the mother bird. His voice, though trembling, remains soft and reassuring. "It's okay, birdie," he murmurs. "We're helping your babies. You'll see them soon." To everyone's amazement, the mother bird's frantic movements begin to slow, her attacks becoming less frequent as she seems to understand Ethan's intent. Peggy, noticing the approaching security guard, makes a split-second decision. She begins to sing an old lullaby, her weathered voice carrying surprisingly well in the rainy night. The unexpected sound catches the guard's attention, and he veers towards her, momentarily distracted from the commotion by the trees. Rusty the hawk swoops down suddenly, landing on a branch near Sarah. His presence, rather than frightening her, seems oddly reassuring. He lets out a series of soft chirps, which appear to calm the mother bird further. Ethan's face lights up with joy, momentarily forgetting his discomfort. "You did it, Mom," he cheers, his admiration for his mother evident in his voice. As Sarah begins her careful descent from the tree, the full impact of what they've accomplished starts to sink in. The mother bird, now calm, flies to the newly placed nest, reuniting with her chicks. The sound of contented chirping fills the air, audible even over the falling rain. Ethan watches the scene with wonder, his eyes wide behind rain-speckled glasses. "We did it," he whispers, a smile spreading across his face despite his chattering teeth. His reaction is a mixture of pride and awe, the kind of pure joy that only comes from making a real difference in the world. Peggy, having successfully diverted the security guard, returns to the group. Her face beams with a grandmother's pride as she looks at Ethan and Sarah. "Well done, both of you," she says warmly. "That was quite the adventure." Sarah reaches the ground, her business attire now completely ruined, hair plastered to her face, but her eyes are shining. For the first time in years, she feels a sense of accomplishment that has nothing to do with profit margins or client acquisitions. She pulls Ethan into a tight hug, not minding the wet clothes. "I'm so proud of us," she murmurs into his hair. Rusty, still perched nearby, lets out a final cry before spreading his wings and soaring off into the rainy night sky. His departure feels like a benediction, a wild approval of their efforts. Peggy, ever practical, breaks the moment of reflection. "Now let's get you two home before we all catch our death of cold," she says, her tone mixing concern with lingering excitement. As Peggy, Sarah, and Ethan make their way towards the park exit, the storm intensifies. Lightning flashes across the sky, followed by a deafening crack of thunder that seems to shake the very ground beneath their feet. Ethan, already weakened by his prolonged exposure to the cold, stumbles and falls to his knees. "Ethan!" Sarah cries, dropping down beside her son. She places a hand on his forehead, her face paling as she feels the heat radiating from his skin. "He's burning up," she says, her voice tight with worry. Sarah nods, fumbling for her phone, only to find it dead, the casualty of their rainy adventure. She looks around frantically, realizing for the first time how dark and deserted the park has become. The rain has driven away any other visitors, and the security guard is nowhere to be seen. As they help Ethan to his feet, a new sound cuts through the rain, the angry barking of dogs. Through the curtain of rain, they see a pack of stray dogs, normally docile park inhabitants, but now agitated by the storm and behaving aggressively. Just as the situation seems dire, a familiar cry pierces the air. Rusty, the red-tailed hawk, swoops down from the stormy sky, diving at the dogs with talons extended. His sudden appearance startles the pack, causing them to scatter momentarily. Supporting Ethan between them, Sarah and Peggy begin to hurry down the path, their progress hampered by the slick ground and Ethan's weakened state. The dogs, recovering from their initial shock, begin to regroup and follow. Ethan's condition worsens with each step, his breath coming in ragged gasps. Sarah's face is a mask of determination tinged with terror, while Peggy's usual calm demeanor shows cracks of genuine fear. The park exit looms tantalizingly close, yet with each labored step, it seems to grow more distant. Ethan's fever spikes dramatically, and he becomes delirious, mumbling incoherently about the birds and Rusty. His weight grows heavier between Sarah and Peggy as his strength ebbs away. "Just a little further, sweetheart," Sarah urges, her voice cracking with emotion. She's never felt so helpless, her usual problem-solving skills rendered useless in the face of nature's fury and her son's declining health. The pack of dogs, emboldened by the storm and their prey's obvious weakness, close in. Their growls grow louder, barely masked by the howling wind and lashing rain. The largest dog, a mixed breed with matted fur, lunges forward, snapping at Sarah's heels. "Peggy!" Sarah cries, torn between helping the older woman and protecting her son. Just then, a flash of brown feathers streaks through the air. Rusty dive-bombs the lead dog, talons raking across its muzzle. The dog yelps in pain and surprise, backing away. Rusty continues his assault, keeping the pack at bay with a flurry of wings and sharp beak. Sarah hesitates, unwilling to leave Peggy behind, but Ethan's worsening condition forces her hand. With a final, anguished look at Peggy, she hoists Ethan into her arms and makes a run for the park exit. As Sarah reaches the park gates, she turns back. Through the curtain of rain, she sees Peggy surrounded by the pack, Rusty wheeling overhead. The old woman seems small and fragile against the backdrop of the raging storm and snarling dogs. Sarah is faced with an impossible choice: continue to safety with her critically ill son, or go back to help Peggy, risking all their lives in the process. The storm reaches a crescendo, a massive thunderclap shaking the very ground, as if underlining the gravity of her decision. In this moment of crisis, as Sarah stands at the precipice of her decision, a startling transformation begins to unfold. Rusty, the red-tailed hawk who has been their unlikely ally throughout the night, suddenly emits a piercing cry that seems to reverberate through the very fabric of reality. As if responding to some unheard command, the storm abruptly intensifies. The rain falls in sheets so thick it obscures everything beyond a few feet. Lightning crackles across the sky in impossible patterns, illuminating the park in an otherworldly glow. And then, in a flash of lightning so bright it momentarily blinds everyone, Rusty begins to change. His form shimmers and grows, feathers melting into fur, wings extending into powerful limbs. Where the hawk once flew, a massive, majestic lion now stands, its mane gleaming despite the downpour. Peggy, who had been bracing for the dog's attack, lowers her cane in astonishment. Her eyes widen with recognition, not of the lion itself, but of something deeper, more profound. "It can't be," she whispers, her voice barely audible over the storm. As Sarah approaches, the lion turns its gaze upon her. Its eyes, a swirling mix of gold and amber, seem to hold centuries of wisdom. When it speaks, its voice resonates not in the air, but directly in their minds. The lion's words hang in the air, heavy with significance. Peggy steps forward, her earlier fear replaced by a look of wonder and dawning recognition. "Aslan," she breathes, the name coming to her lips unbidden. "But how? You're from a story." Sarah, still holding Ethan, feels a surge of warmth flow through her body. The rain continues to fall, but she no longer feels its chill. "I don't understand," she says, her voice trembling. "What's happening?" As he speaks, the park around them begins to shimmer and change. The trees seem to grow taller, their leaves taking on an almost golden hue despite the darkness. The air fills with a sweet fragrance, reminiscent of summer meadows and ancient forests. Before Sarah can answer, Aslan continues, "The world you know is but one of many, and the barriers between them are thinner than most realize. Your actions tonight, your kindness to the birds, your bravery in the face of danger, your willingness to help strangers, have opened a doorway." He turns, gesturing with his noble head towards a path that wasn't there moments before. It winds away into a misty distance, lined with trees that seem to glow from within. "A great adventure awaits you," Aslan says, "if you choose to accept it. A chance to see wonders beyond imagining, and perhaps to bring a little of that magic back to your own world." Sarah, Ethan, and Peggy stand at the threshold of an impossible decision, the magical path stretching before them in stark contrast to the familiar cityscape behind. The storm has calmed, leaving an expectant hush in its wake. "What do we do?" Sarah asks, her voice barely above a whisper. Peggy places a gentle hand on Sarah's shoulder. "My dear," she says softly, "sometimes the greatest adventures come when we least expect them, and sometimes they're exactly what we need." Sarah takes a deep breath, feeling the weight of the decision. She thinks of her job, her responsibilities, the life she's built. But then she looks at her son's face, at Peggy's encouraging smile, at the magical path before them. In that moment, she realizes that the real adventure, the one she's been missing all along, is right here. With their decision made, a palpable sense of excitement and anticipation fills the air. Aslan nods approvingly, a low purr rumbling from his chest. "You have chosen wisely," he says. "But remember, every great adventure requires courage, compassion, and faith. Hold on to these virtues, and they will guide you through whatever challenges you may face." As they prepare to step onto the magical path, Sarah suddenly pauses. "Wait," she says, turning to Aslan. "What about our lives here, our jobs, our homes? Won't people wonder where we've gone?" This reassurance seems to lift a weight from Sarah's shoulders. She straightens up, a new determination in her stance. "All right then," she says, squeezing Ethan's hand. "We're ready." With a final look at the familiar world behind them, the trio takes their first steps onto the glowing path. As they do, the air around them shimmers and sparkles, as if they're passing through a veil of starlight. And with that, they step fully into the new world, leaving behind the ordinary and embracing the extraordinary. Ethan's eyes are wide with wonder, his earlier fatigue completely forgotten. He spins in a circle, trying to take in every detail at once. "Mom, look!" he exclaims, pointing to a group of creatures that looked like a cross between rabbits and butterflies, hopping and fluttering among the flowers. Sarah feels a lump form in her throat as she watches her son. She realizes now how much of his childlike wonder she's been missing, caught up in the daily grind of her career. Tears prick at her eyes. but they're tears of joy and a bittersweet recognition of what she's nearly lost. Peggy, standing tall and straight as if years have fallen away from her, places a comforting hand on Sarah's arm. "It's never too late to rediscover the magic in life," she says softly, her eyes twinkling with understanding. Sarah nods, unable to speak for a moment. She takes a deep breath of the enchanted air, feeling as if she's breathing freely for the first time in years. The weight of deadlines, meetings, and corporate ladders seems to fall away, replaced by a sense of limitless possibility. Aslan, still walking beside them, speaks. "This is but the beginning," he says, his voice filled with warmth. "The real journey lies in rediscovering the connections between you and the magic that exists in your own world." Ethan, always curious about nature, finds himself completely in his element. His excitement is infectious as he discovers new creatures and plants at every turn. But more than that, he begins to see the interconnectedness of all living things, a concept that had always fascinated him but now becomes tangibly real. His empathy, already strong, grows even deeper. Sarah watches her son with a mixture of pride and regret. She realizes how close she came to stifling this beautiful, curious spirit with her overscheduled life and career-focused mindset. As they walk, she makes a silent vow to nurture this side of Ethan and to rediscover her own sense of wonder that she'd lost somewhere along the way. Peggy, despite her years, finds a new spring in her step. The wisdom she's accumulated over a lifetime seems to align perfectly with the magic of this new world. She feels a sense of purpose she hasn't experienced in years, knowing that her knowledge and patience will be crucial in guiding her younger companions. As they crest a hill, they come upon a breathtaking vista of a shimmering city in the distance, its spires reaching towards the sky. The sight fills them all with a sense of awe and anticipation. The three travelers exchange glances, a mix of excitement and trepidation in their eyes. They know that whatever challenges lie ahead, they will face them together, forever changed by this unexpected adventure. As the sun begins to set in this magical realm, painting the sky in hues of gold and purple never seen in their own world, Sarah, Ethan, and Peggy find themselves at a crossroads. The path splits, one way leading towards the shimmering city, the other curving back towards a shimmering portal that unmistakably leads home. Aslan stands before them, his mane glowing in the fading light. "You have learned much on this short journey," he says, his voice filled with warmth and wisdom. "But the greatest adventures often lie in the everyday world, if you have the eyes to see them." Ethan looks longingly at the distant city, then back at his mother and Peggy. A smile spreads across his face. "Yeah," he says, "I think our own world can be just as exciting if we look at it the right way." As they turn towards the portal home, Aslan speaks one last time. "Remember, the magic you've seen here exists in your world too. It lives in acts of kindness, in the bonds between people, and in the wonder of nature. Keep your hearts open, and you will always find it." With grateful smiles and hearts full of newfound purpose, Sarah, Ethan, and Peggy step through the portal. As they do, they know that while their grand adventure may be ending, a new, equally exciting journey is just beginning. The journey of rediscovering the magic in their everyday lives. As Sarah, Ethan, and Peggy step back into their familiar park, they find that barely any time has passed. The storm has cleared, leaving behind a fresh, clean scent in the air. The world around them seems unchanged, yet to their eyes, everything appears brighter, more vibrant, and full of possibility. They exchange knowing glances, each silently acknowledging the profound impact of their shared adventure. Though they've only known each other for a short time, they feel bonded by their extraordinary experience. In the weeks that follow, Sarah finds herself spending more time in the park with Ethan, rediscovering the joy of simple pleasures. Peggy becomes a regular part of their lives, sharing her wisdom and joining them on everyday adventures. And sometimes, when the light hits just right, they catch a glimpse of something magical, a reminder of the wonders that exist in all worlds. Dear viewers, let this tale inspire you to find magic in your own lives. Look at the world with fresh eyes, cherish the connections you make, and remember that every day holds the potential for adventure. Share this story with those you love, and together, rediscover the wonder that exists all around us, if only we have the heart to see it.